I've shot a lot of interviews in my day, and there are times where the location just may not be aesthetically pleasing. You may end up shooting in front of a plain wall, or the location just has nothing to offer, or you may be in a studio with just a cyc. But there are ways to make these boring locations pop, so let's get into it. So as you can see, we're in a studio where it's literally just a cyc. We had to share it with the photographers because essentially we were actually doing behind the scenes all day, and then we had the interview at the end of the day. Now the goal that the client wanted was to match the interview with the energy from the photographers. They were using colored props, they were using gels. So how do we bring that in and match that energy in the interview or video setting? Now with that, I want to talk about 3 things that we did to elevate the shoot. First and foremost being the background. It is just a cyc. There is nothing happening. There's no color. There is nothing. And so the first thing I thought of was, how do we add texture to this background? Now there's multiple ways that you can add texture. You can do it with lighting, or you can do it physically with things within the shot. But what would make sense going within this shot for being on this cyc? And so I decided to keep some of the photography lights and, you know, the Digitex cart all in the shot. You see some of the lights happening in the background. You see the fan to the left. You see the cart on the right, the umbrella, all of this happening on the wide shot, which is adding texture. So that's what I decided to do with the background. We even had them turn on some of their test bulbs. Like they were shooting with strobe lights, not continuous. So we had them turn on some of the test bulbs so they can be practicals in the shot. Like if you look on the floor, you can see some of the color, and that's from some of the test bulbs. That warmth that's happening by her arm. We had a light behind her on the floor that she's hiding with her body, and a test lamp is on. And then as you can see here, we have a gel right here with a small pro photo light, strobe light for the photographers, that has a gel on it that has the test light is on, so it's hitting through this blue gel, which is also bringing some texture to the ground. Like we didn't put too much in there, but we still had enough in there to just give you a visual sense of where we were and what was going on. So that was the first thing, how to add texture to your background. And as you can see from there, the next thing I had to think about was lighting. So how are we going to light this full cyc? How are we going to give it dimension? Like it doesn't have to be one dimensional. How are we going to add depth, add texture, add dimension into this? So first and foremost, my goal was to set Kelly way farther from the background so we can have a little bit more depth. I was shooting on a Sony FX6 as my A cam and a Sony FX3 as my B cam. I think I had the 70-200 on the B cam, and then I had a 24-70 on the A cam. And of course we're at 2.8, so we're already getting a lot more depth. My goal going into this was, we have this huge cyc. They sent us the pictures. We have this huge cyc. How can we light this cyc overall? So we're lighting for spaces and not faces, or we're lighting for spaces and faces. Now y'all know I love warmth. With darker skin tones or black skin tones, we have this rich color about us. Our skin tones are very rich. And so how do I elevate that or enhance that and not get rid of that? So for our main light, our key light, we decided to go with a book light because it gives you a really nice soft spread. Like they say, the bigger the source, the softer the light. And a book light, because you're essentially kind of double diffusing it, it really gives us nice soft light. And it's Kelly Rowland, this beautiful woman, talking about motherhood. So we wanted to kind of like play in on that. And it is a thicker material, and so you have to use enough light that can shoot through that through an ultra bounce. And so we decided to use two 600X Pros, two Aperture 600X Pros, to make sure we had enough light that was going to shoot through this book light to hit back on her. That was going to be enough for us. That's what gave us this really nice glow with her. She's already wearing she's already wearing like this yellowish color, and her skin tone is already this rich warmth. So all of that really kind of like blended in with this warm vibe that we wanted to go for. You can see the fall off of the light. And like which, you know, where the direction of the light is coming from, which is the thing that you should always look at when you're looking at things. Like, where is the lighting coming from? Like, what is it motivated by? Where is it at? Like, those are the type of things to look at, so you can see the fall off on her shoulder of like the light. And then we had the Light Matte 4 as our hair light, which was also tungsten, and we have that spilling, but we skirted it so that it wouldn't spill too far out on that cyc. And so we were able to make that a little bit more directional than the book light. And so we have the hair light, and then we have our key light. And those were the only two main lights that we used. But again, we did have the practicals in the background also helping elevate the experience. So I always say, and I said this in my previous video, if you go and look at that, that you don't need a lot of lights to light something. Sometimes you need to think about practicals. It's the small details of how can a practical, a light or a test bulb or a candle affect this whole experience. And I think a lot of times we're using all these lights. You have 5 lights going on, and you can have 1 light with a practical or 2 lights with a practical. And so don't always think that you need to have all these lights. You need light, but they don't always have to be the artificial RGB LED huge lights that you have to completely set up. Like sometimes in order to create an ambiance, practicals go a long way. And so that's what happened with this. Our background was pretty much lit with practicals, and then we have our key that pretty much lit the overall space to add a little bit more. And that was it when it came to lighting. Now, the last thing that I had to think about outside of like camera equipment and things like that was, first it was the background, then it was the lighting, and now it's how can we bring color? How can we bring mood into this? Again, we don't want to just have this boring sight. We don't want it to just be this warmth about it. But what else can we do to elevate this and also so that it looks very similar to and match the energy of the photographers? For some odd reason, I can't remember why, we couldn't use the gels that they gave us. They just did not work. They weren't powerful enough. It was something about them. So I remembered having gels in my car. And this is just a note that sometimes you need to just be overly prepared because you never know what's going to happen. I've always had these gels in my car. They were like $10. And I remember, hey, when my gaffer was like, these gels aren't working, we were able to use the gels that were in my car. So it was about thinking quick on my feet of like, wait, I got gels in the car. You know, they'd be like, we got McDonald's at the house. I was like, I got gels in the car. So we were able to bring that out. And then with that, the photographers allowed us to use some of their gels. So we were able to match them by adding gels to, you know, some of our practicals. Now, I forgot to note, we did have a joker that is pretty much hiding on the right side of our book light to light the wall. So you can see on the B cam, you can see that blue. That was from a joker that we had, and we put a blue gel, we folded a blue gel together, and we clamped it onto that joker to create this blue look. And I think that blue really elevated because we already had so much warmth happening, and that blue just really brought it all together. So we have this blue happening by the cart, and then we also have, like you can see, a little bit of the white overall from the cyc. But then where is this purple-ish, pinkish color coming from? Like, we didn't have anything where we lit the pink. This is a secret. I actually colored this whole thing for them and created a LUT for them. I actually went into Premiere and I used the color mat, and I pretty much did a vignette. I brought this pink in and did a pink color mat, and I pretty much just used the blending tool to blend it into the cyc so that we had pink on this left side of frame, so that all these colors blended in together to give us what we wanted. I didn't want it to just be this really pop of blue and then this just white cyc or this warmer cyc. I wanted to have a color on the right and a color on the left, and then they all blend in. And so that's what you see on the wide and the close-up. That is honestly from me just kind of going above and beyond to, you know, enhance this and make this a beautiful image. And so sometimes you may see on set that or in post that it wasn't, dang, you wish you could have did this. And, you know, luckily it's something as simple as that. I was able to go in and do that. Now, the one thing that I would say, looking back at it, that I would do differently would probably be this umbrella on B-cam. I would probably turn a test bulb on for that. It could have been too bright, which is why we didn't do it, because we pretty much did it on every other light. And so that could have been the reason why we didn't turn on, because it could have just been too bright. And again, these are practicals, and we don't, you know, this was from the photographers. We didn't have anything to dim them with. Another thing that I would have changed in hindsight, now that I look at this, is the floppy that is by her head on B-cam. I would have moved it over just a little bit because it's kind of just a little distracting. So I would have just moved that over. But other than that, this is like beautiful, and it was one of my favorite shoots to date, just because the time given, the budget given. We didn't have enough time or a lot of time. We didn't have a big budget, but we still were able to create something beautiful with what we had. And so times like that, it's always rewarding when you know you don't have everything that you need. Of course, if you have everything that you need, it's great. But the challenge really comes when you really don't have everything that you would want, but you can still find a way to make it such a dynamic project. So to me, those are the more rewarding parts about everything. But yeah, that was pretty much it on like really finding ways to turn boring locations into aesthetically pleasing locations. Like, what can you do? Whether it's composition and you plan around with that, whether it's through lighting, whether it's through color gels, whether it's through texture, like what can you do? Always think about, how can I elevate this location? So hopefully this helped you all. If you guys still have questions or any question, please leave them down below in the comments. Like this video, share with your friends. Make sure that you all are subscribed to my YouTube channel. And if you have watched to the end, make sure that you guys leave a light bulb in the comments. Thank y'all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, bye.